Welcome to Vendetta Sports Media. Today is June 16th. It is the Daily Show. It is myself, James Herrick, joined by Griffin. How's it going?
I'm doing good today, James. As
Yep.
usual, how are you?
Always a great day. Never a bad day. That's kind of a lie, but you know how it goes. Anyways, we had some big news this morning. Plain and simple, in the NBA world, Adam Silver finally announced the Ja Morant suspension. It ended up being 25 games. For those not in the know, basically, Ja Morant flashed a gun around on Instagram Live, got 8 games, did it again. Now he's up to 25. So I guess just to kick this off, what are your initial thoughts and reactions to Ja Morant's suspension?
I mean, my initial reaction when I got the alert and I immediately hopped on Slack, I was like, that is way too low. I know Trey's gonna have a field day on his post about it, so I'll let him with the banter on that. But I mean, the one thing that kind of confused me is Adam Silver kind of hyped it all up to be this kind of big suspension. Like I was expecting like a Malice in the Palace type deal, like he's spending the whole season or like give him like 70 games or whatever. But 25 seems way too low. And I think Silver could have done something a lot more in his first suspension. Only 8 games seems kind of odd. Maybe like give him 20 then. But now 25 just seems way too low. Just it's the second time, and I just don't get what Silver is doing there.
Yeah, I'll say that I think this is a hard situation because there really isn't any precedent or rule set to really follow to determine how many games he should be suspended. Like the NFL has set number of suspensions that they can usually apply to any case. They can't really do that here, so it is kind of difficult. Um, but at the same time, I think when you look at a jump from 8 to 25, and that being in an NBA season, that really isn't. I don't think that jump makes sense. I think you should jump a little higher for a second infraction, and that's of any suspension. You know, if you do something once and get 8 games, do it again. I think you should probably get higher than 25. So I'm with you. I don't really know what the right answer would have been. I don't know if the right answer was 30. I don't know if the right answer was 40 or 45 even. But I do agree that I think it is a little bit too low. And the one thing that really interests me here that I was really surprised about, and you mentioned this in the Slack channel a while back in our NBA Slack. uh, Adam Silver kind of hyped the suspension up,
Mhm.
and it felt weird to me that he was like, hey, we don't want to take anything away from the players playing in the NBA finals. And then he goes on and does 14 TV shows and 8 podcasts, and every single one asks him about John Morant. And it's like,
Mhm.
well, at this point, you're not really even, at this point, you're just dragging it out and getting it in the news even longer. And I think that is my least favorite part about this whole suspension is kind of the media circus it turned into with Adam Silver going on every single TV show and podcast talking about how many games he's going to get suspended for.
Yeah, and I think like the big kind of part where it kind of became underwhelming was just like we both said is just the amount of suspense going into it. And just I saw like you said 14 like different TV shows, 8 podcasts or whatever you name it, like how many it was.
Oh, those also are just me throwing out numbers, just
Yeah,
for
yeah,
anyone watching, just me tossing out numbers.
yeah. But like besides the point, he made even like a league announcement, like which is huge. Like normally Silver doesn't make league announcements, and he even stepped up to like podium and was like, "I'm going to suspend John Morant after the NBA Finals. We want to give like the teams, the Nuggets and the Heat, to really like it's their moment." And the fact that he had to say that is kind of concerning and almost just like a money grab and just like we want all the eyes on John Morant. Like we all knew this like NBA finals was gonna be like kind of underwhelming to some, and as we all saw the viewings, like the ratings were down. And I think that was kind of just a money grab and just a momentum push for the NBA. So I think
Yeah,
it's wrong of Silver to do that.
I agree with you. I agree with you. And if he doesn't say anything at all, it's like that's the best way
Mhm.
to not affect the finals.
Yeah.
But he took the complete opposite, going out and saying, he basically stepped out with a microphone and was like, "Hey, you'll get your answer here in a week or 2 weeks or however long the series drags out." And it's like, well, at that point, you're doing the complete opposite of what you intended to do, and it's like it's hard to say he didn't do that on purpose because it's like so blatantly obvious. Like it isn't hard to like come to that conclusion. Like it isn't hard to go, well, the more you talk about it, the more other people are going to talk about it. It's like it's fairly easy to come to that conclusion. And he was
Mhm,
also cracking jokes about it. He went on Dan Patrick's
mhm.
show and he cracked a joke about it, and I was like, you're making this seem all serious and you're out here cracking jokes, and then you end up giving a 25 game suspension. The whole thing just felt off to me, and I think that is probably the best way that I can describe it, is off. It just felt fishy. It just felt not handled in the right way from start to finish, whether it be the way he handled it and the amount of games they ended up giving him. But I think they made a lot of mistakes in the way they handled this.
Yeah. Let me ask this. If you were Silver in the situation, obviously I know you wouldn't talk about it, but how many games would you give Ja on his first and second offense?
I don't know how many I give on the first offense. That's a good question. Probably more than 8, but I probably wouldn't have done anything crazy. On the second one, I probably would have gone 41 half the season. I
Mhm.
think that is probably the direction I would have gone. So and 10 games in an NBA season is, I don't think that's, you could maybe even make an argument to go higher, but I think half the season, I think, is kind of the benchmark that stood out to me. I wouldn't, get upset if they went higher than that, if they went higher than 41. Um, but I think 41 is more of a floor to set.
Yeah, I agree. I think if I was like Silver in that situation, the first one I would give him like probably 15 to 20 games. I think it would just be kind of like a yo, listen, like if you do this again, that's kind of like it's uh how do you say it? It's just kind of like a warning shot almost.
Hmm, hmm.
And in the second one, I feel like it was like I don't know if it was worse, but his friend did kind of point the gun like at him and he did pull it out. And I think I would give him more than 41. I think I would upwards probably I think 60 to 82, if not like the full season. So I think that was just kind of a teaching moment. Like it's obviously one of your biggest young stars, and I know they would lose a lot of money with Morant just being out, and that was a big point of him only getting suspended 25 games. Is they're gonna get all the money, but still like always got to pay his price for what he did. And in a sense, that is wrong. He should like learn from his mistakes, and clearly Ja hasn't. So I think anything less than 60 games in that second suspension is kinda wrong for him to do.
Yeah, and like I said, I think 41 is a good floor half the season, but like
Mhm,
I would not be opposed to going higher than that. I would not be opposed to around 60, like you said, or even the full regular season. And the reasoning that you can justify it is because, like you said, once you do it the second time, it's like it shows that the first suspension didn't work. It shows that there's really no like improvement in actions, right? And that is what really I think stands out to me as like the real red flag is that you get suspended once, you absolutely cannot do it again, and you go out there and do it again. And that is, you can say that about anything at all. But when you're talking about something as serious as waving guns around, that is a big, big, red flag, and something you definitely can't do. So I'm with you here. I think they dropped the ball a little bit, and I'm interested in what they would have done if it wasn't a player of John Morant's caliber.
mhm.
Because since it is John Morant, he does get a lot more media attention, so maybe they were pressured a little bit to give him a suspension. But it's also like if this were a role player, you know, would this have been 82 for the second suspension? So those are the things that I'm kind of interested in. Is it's like this was unprecedented. Well, maybe not that extreme, but something we definitely haven't seen or heard about in a very long time. So I'm really interested in what they would have done if it was a player of a lesser quality or a player that most people don't know.
Yeah.
Um, so unless you have anything else to throw in there on John Morant, I say we move along and get on some topics that are a little bit funner to talk about because nobody really likes talking about suspensions and gun control. So unless you have anything else that you want to throw in here before we move on, I think we are all set to move on. But I'll give you that option.
Yeah, I think we can move on right to Jordan. So, I know,
Yep.
James, you wrote the breaking news post on
Mhm.
this. So, can you give us a little info on what happened with Jordan selling the Hornets and who did he sell them to and all that?
Yeah, yeah. So the rundown is he sold the Michael Jordan sells the Hornets for I believe it was two. I want to say it was either 2 or 3 billion. I believe it was three, but it's in the post. And he sold it to two guys who I had never heard of, but it sounds like they're both relatively involved in the NBA space. Um, the one guy, his last name was Shaw. He was an owner of the Hawks. He was a minority owner, so he's selling off his share of the Hawks, and he's buying in on the Hornets. And the other guy was already a part owner in the Hornets, so he's basically going from part owner. He bought a small share in 2019, and now he's going much bigger and becoming, one of the two majority owners here now. So and the one thing that really stood out to me was Jordan went from he bought his initial stake in the team for 275 million, and now he's selling. He's keeping some, so he's not completely out, but he's no longer the majority for 3 billion. So I'll tell you what an investment! What an investment turning 275 into 3 billion. So it, I get why he's pulling the plug and he's getting out now, but for Jordan, I don't think he was as rich as some of the other owners in the NBA. Just because he was a player, obviously has done great things with Nike, but his pocketbooks were not as big as other owners that come from business backgrounds. Now he's right up there with them though, so it ended up being quite the investment for MJ.
Yeah. And even similarly to Mark Cuban with the Mavericks, I remember they were worth around, I think, something like $275 million when he first bought them, and now they're worth like over 2 billion. So,
Hmm.
I mean, it shows what if you put into a franchise, and even though the Hornets aren't the greatest team, they're still worth like a ton of money. So, I mean, shout out to Jordan for that investment. But I don't know if you saw this too, James, but J. Cole actually bought a minority stock in the Hornets as well. So I'm not sure
Yeah.
how much it was, but J. Cole's obviously a rapper if anyone out there does not know who he is. So
Hmm.
he's a part
Yeah.
owner of the Hornets now.
Shout out J. Cole because I'm pretty sure he's a Charlotte fan.
Mhm,
And J. Cole is very connected to the NBA. Played in a league in Africa, I believe it was, and I think he did a workout with the Pistons one time.
mhm.
Shouts out NBA players in his song, and he was also he played a role in getting Caleb Martin down to Miami. So maybe they let J. Cole in some front office discussions over there in Charlotte. Maybe they start winning a few more games because I mean apparently he was watching Caleb Martin in Charlotte. He gets released and he goes, "What the hell's going on here? You can't release this guy." And hey, credit to J. Cole because he was on the right side of that one with Caleb Martin. So maybe they
Mhm.
let him in the front office. Maybe obviously not to two extremes, but maybe he gets to give a nice little word for a player every once in a while. And who knows? I mean, Charlotte hasn't been the best, so maybe he helps them out, win a couple extra games, hold on to a couple players. But that was
Yeah,
cool for J. Cole because he's always been big in the NBA and a big North Carolina fan. So or big in North Carolina. So credit to J. Cole in that one as well. Eric Church also for those who like country. I don't, but I know the name. So if anyone
yep,
is a big country fan, um, maybe Jimmy Butler will be happy about that one. I know he likes country music, but I really don't know shit about country. So shout out Eric Church, I guess.
yeah,
Um, and also Jordan get out of this pretty quickly because he was only an owner for 13 years. Most guys I feel like who buy a team stay in a little bit longer than that. So I think 13 years was a pretty short lifespan. And in all honesty, he didn't even really do that well. The team really didn't win anything. I'm not. I think they only made the playoffs, once or twice in that period. I'd have to go double check. I don't know off the top of my head, but he wasn't even really that good of an owner. He just kind of sat back and watched his money stack. So credit to him, I guess. I mean, it's a pretty good gig. You get to sit courtside while you're making, 10 times on an investment. So credit Jordan, but he wasn't really that great of an owner, for being honest.
Yeah. To stat check you, James, the Hornets last made the playoffs in 2015, where they lost in Game 7 to the Heat. And then 2013, 2014 got swept. 2009, 2010, they got swept again. So not looking great for the Hornets.
No. So 3 years because he bought it in 2010. So 3 depending on when the purchase happened. But either way, not great. Hey, they've got LaMelo. Maybe they turn it around. Maybe they draft Scoot. Who knows? We'll see. Moving on. The next piece of kind of news related. Well, I guess it is news. I don't know why I said kind of news, but nothing official is probably the best way to word that. Nothing official. DeAndre Hopkins has been a free agent, and apparently his final 2 teams are the New England Patriots and the Tennessee Titans. I saw the New England Patriots coming. I thought that was a possibility. The Tennessee Titans really caught me by surprise. What are you thinking here with DeAndre Hopkins? Having this be his final 2 teams that he's kind of narrowing in on here.
I mean, when I saw when he was kind of dumbing down the teams, and I was shocked and confused, to say the least. And I remember I wrote the post on why he should join the Eagles and how he wants to join a winning team and money doesn't matter. Well, clearly he's thrown both of those out the window right now. Joining the Titans, who could possibly be the worst team in the NFL this season. And it's up there with the Cardinals, so he's not getting much better. The Patriots, obviously, they're in probably the hardest division in football right now as we speak. So going to Mac Jones as a quarterback, and the Patriots weren't great on passing the ball with their OC and just Bill Belichick. He's getting old, so can Hopkins revitalize his career right now and get a few good seasons with the Patriots or Titans? Probably not. But I don't want to doubt him because I know I've ate my words before, and I just don't get why he chose those 2 teams. Or it's not official, obviously, but a little kind of head scratching for Hopkins.
Yeah, and I get the Patriots one a little bit more because I think within the NFL there's probably a lot of respect for the Patriots, and DeAndre Hopkins probably looking at it as a situation of, if I go to the Patriots, they now have a number 1 receiver, help their receiving offense, help them win some games. That's probably his thought process on that. So I kind of understand that, being a player within the league. But the Tennessee Titans is just like, you want to win and you're going to Tennessee. It's like, listen, Tennessee showed you their hand this offseason. They showed you their hand when they cut half the roster and drafted a quarterback in the 2nd round and had that be their second rookie quarterback in 2 years. They showed you their hand. It's like, you don't cut. I think they cut 5, 6 starters off that team. O-line got scrapped apart. It's like, and you don't even know what the quarterback situation is looking like. It's like, if you're Hopkins, it makes no sense. It makes absolutely none. Like, at least going to New England, you're like, all right, I know Mac Jones will be my quarterback. Regardless of your opinion on Mac Jones, you can narrow the list down to one name. And most teams, you can narrow the list down to one name. But in Tennessee, who's going to be the quarterback? Tannehill, Levis. It's like, I wouldn't love either of those. It's like, I assume Malik Willis is out of the picture. You have to assume he is, but it's like, in what world are you going to Tennessee to win? And like you said, maybe some of these winning teams, maybe they're not in on them. But like you said, Philadelphia, if you're looking to win, that's a team you should look at. Kansas City, if you're looking to win, I'm sure they would be able to use him in a pretty efficient manner. It's like Buffalo, I'm sure, would like a second wide out and really make that receiving room a lot deeper. It's like, I can't imagine that there's teams that are unwilling to sign him at this point in his career, because he's obviously a little bit older. But if you're able to sign him on a semi-reasonable contract, it comes with really no risk as long as the contract isn't crazy. So I honestly can't wrap my head around what he's thinking with going to Tennessee, and honestly what some of these other teams are thinking, not even attempting to add him to their roster. Because even though he's not in his prime at this point, I still think he can provide value to an NFL team, and I don't think that's a hot take, especially in a place like Philly, Buffalo, where he doesn't have to be a wide receiver one at this stage in his career. He'd be a great wide receiver too.
Yeah, like, I'm looking at the salary cap right now, and, I mean, some good teams have a ton of cap space right now. The Jets, Lions could be a fun addition to them, even though it's Jared Goff throwing them. Cowboys, Vikings, who else? Bengals have a good amount. Dolphins, Eagles, Chargers, Jaguars, like 49ers. They can all sign them. So why not take a shot? Like, the worst you can do is eat what, 10 million cap space and can't sign anyone when your roster's already bolstered with great players.
Hmm.
So I think that's just kind of a foolish move. And I know he's been a little bit injury prone, or he has been, but he's still a great receiver. He's still capable of being an all pro receiver. And it just doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know if it's character concerns with Hopkins or anything like that, but
I don't that well, I guess he did pop for PEDs, but that really hasn't, been something that has been a major issue in his career.
yeah, and why not take a shot? I don't get it. I really don't. So, I mean, it's kinda odd that these teams are just not willing to take a bite at the bait, so,
Hmm.
yeah.
I will say I'm interested to know how many years he's asking for. I think the number of years on the contract will make a difference here.
Mhm.
If it comes out being a 3-year deal, then you're all of a sudden going, all right, that makes a little bit more sense. But if you can get him on a 1 or 2 year deal, especially if you can, find a way to load, NFL contracts are so flexible. If you can load some of that money into your salary cap of what you have left this year and try and make the second year not that much guaranteed, I don't see much risk either as long as you can find a way to make the contract make sense, which maybe we see the contract in a week or 2 weeks and go, all right, now I get why he's in Tennessee. They gave him 3 years and they overpaid him massively. And it's like, all right, that makes a little bit more sense. But I mean, I would even be surprised if that happened at this point, to be honest.
Yeah, and I mean, when I wrote the post on the Eagles, like, I just said, "Go to them." They've been to the Super Bowl multiple times, and they have one of the best deep ball accuracy quarterbacks in the NFL in Jalen Hurts, and they have $14 million this season in cap space left over. They've already signed everyone on their team. They cannot sign, like, pretty much anyone else, and they have, I think, if I'm looking at it right now, they have 47 million next year. So even a 2-year deal, you can win a championship with the Eagles right now, if not, like, win both if they go back to back. Who knows? The NFL's a weird place, but I mean, the Eagles have all the peace in the world. Put AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, and Hopkins together. That might be one of the best, if not the best, wide receiver corps in the NFL outside of the Bengals. So
Yeah. Could you imagine the Twitter storm if Philadelphia signed DeAndre Hopkins? They were drafting Keely Ringo in round 4 and people were going crazy and they were like, "Oh my god, they did it again. They did it again." It's like they add Jalen Carter and people are like, "Oh my god, they had DeAndre Swift," and people are like, "Jesus, how'd they manage this?" If they
mhm,
managed to get DeAndre Hopkins on that roster, I think, people would probably lose their mind and that would be the most talented roster in the league by a fairly wide margin,
yeah,
in my opinion. So, um, moving on off of Hopkins, I want to talk some NBA draft here, and I want to kind of pick your brain on some of these prospects because um, the NBA draft is coming around the corner. I think we've got less than a week left. We've been pumping out NBA draft profiles on the website, so make sure you go check those out. I think we've got probably 15 to 20 done at this point. I don't know off the top of my head, but there's a decent number that are done. I imagine we're going to get some more flooded out here before the draft comes out. I know I plan on tackling a couple more, but so what I want to do here is I have a couple of prospects written down and I kind of group them in like tiers or like similar player archetypes. And I want to so I'm going to give you a group of players, a list of players. Um, and I want you to tell me who you like the most out of the group and who you would be most willing to draft. out of the selection of players for whatever reason, whether it be you like their upside, whether you like their floor, whether you like their skills and how they can translate to the NBA. I'm just going to list you some prospects, and then you tell me which one you like the most heading into the draft.
Okay.
First group is the kind of initial wing or forward group once you get out of that top four. So Jarris Walker, Cam Whitmore, Taylor Hendricks, and Asar Thompson. Which one of those wings that are probably going to get drafted in the, we'll say 4 to 8, 4 to 9 range? Which one of those guys do you like the most?
I mean, I've been on the Sar Thompson. I've been on the Thompson twin train this entire last few years, and I think I gotta go with Sar. I know I like Amen better, but
Mm-hmm.
Asar is just a different beast. Their athleticism is just off the charts. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't hate Hendricks, Walker, Whitmore, any of those guys. But I think Thompson will be the best guy out of that group. I think his ceiling is definitely the highest out of him. And I think he can be, not that Jalen Green's a bad player, but I think he can elevate Jalen Green. He's obviously a better passer, and he's good on defense too. He averaged 3.5 steals and almost 2 blocks a game in OTE. And I know it's not Division One basketball. It's obviously a new up and coming league, but I mean it's still gonna be D1 guys in that program. It's obviously high school guys, but still, I think his even though he's a little bit older than them, maybe by a few months, maybe a year. But I gotta go Thompson. I think he's the best one. He has the best ceiling, and I think he honestly has the highest floor out of any of those guys.
Mm-hmm. I think that's probably the most interesting group to me because I wouldn't hate if I were an NBA team getting my hands on any of those guys. And it's like Asar is interesting in the fact where it's like he can be really good defensively.
Mhm.
As at 6'7", he'll slide in at the wing. He'll be great defensively. Will be great in transition. And if he can develop any resemblance of a shot, his ceiling is going to be crazy. He's also very good off the ball cutting as well. So it's like he has a lot of talents. But if he can get that shot together, he will probably end up being one of the top. It's hard to say because this draft is talented because you got Wembanyama, Scoot, but he could be a top 3 to 5 player if he,
Mhm.
nails down that shot. But the other guys, like I said, that's an interesting group to me because I really like Jarris Walker, great defense. Cam Whitmore, tons of upside. Taylor Hendricks, 6'9", block shots and shoots the three. It's kind of a prototypical 4. So that's a really interesting group. And in all honesty, I think that comes down more to preference. I don't think there's a right or wrong. I think that comes down to preference. Now, the next group is kind of the top tier guards in this year's draft. So we've got, and we're excluding Scoot because he's in a men because they're both so far away. So I guess it's kind of the second tier. I should rephrase that as Anthony Black, Cason Wallace, and we'll throw Kobe Buffkin and Jalen Hood-Schifino in there as well, as kind of the next group of guards off the board outside of those elite guys that are taking top 3, top 4.
I think I gotta say, I know it's not against Michigan, not against you, James, but I think Kobe Buffkin's easily the worst guy on this list.
What?
Easily, yeah.
Oh man.
I'm not a fan of him. I never have been, and even, watching his game in person, because I went to all the IU Michigan games in past 2 seasons. He did not impress me one bit. I
Really?
just, didn't I no, he did not. I think Hunter Dickinson kinda stole the show, and I feel like just he seemed kinda underwhelming to me almost. I don't think Jalen Hood-Schifino is the best guard in the class, but I think he can be better than Kobe Buffkin. And then Kason Wallace, you said, and Anthony Black.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's tough. I think I wanna just go Anthony Black just based on his size. He's a bigger guard, but I know he could play the 3 if he wanted to, and I like that it's tough 'cause I don't know much about those 2 guys, I think. So, I would say it's kind of a toss-up in between. I think Anthony Black might have more potential than Wallace, but I figure I can't really have much to say on this because I don't know those guys, as well as I should.
All right, fair enough. I will say Anthony Black has a lot of upside because he is 6'7" and he is a good playmaker, and it's like that's something that not many guys have. So, Trey, we will get to Mr. Grady Dick here in a minute. He is on a list of prospects that I want to throw out here. But to defend my man Kobe Buffkin, the thing that I really like about Kobe is that he made so many improvements while he was in college. So it's like I watched him
Mhm,
a lot in his first year, in his second year, and I saw he was the type of guy to me. I was like constantly improving. So it's like I think once he gets into the league, improving, and he doesn't like. I'll agree with you that he doesn't really steal the show or doesn't like. He It's weird because it's like it always felt like Jet and Hunter were the one and two guys on that team. It's like
mhm,
I think once he gets in the NBA, he'll continue to make improvements, and it's like he's really good at the rim, does some good things. So it's like I like Kobe probably more than most, and it's also like I value like the improvements that he's shown. I think, and he never stopped improving either. So it's like I think that's one of the reasons I'm high on him. So you got to defend the boy Kobe. But now the next group is kind of I say kind of like the spark plug guards, where it's like these guys can get a bucket. They've got a lot of issues in terms of determining when to go get a bucket and when to pass. Both have a ton of potential though. So Keontae George and Nick Smith Jr., both freshmen last year, both highly touted recruits. Which direction you lean there?
Ooh, I mean, I know, like, George kinda struggled a little bit from just shooting wise, and
Hmm.
Smith also did. Obviously, their effective field goal percentage isn't, like, as high as it should be. I think just based on what I drafted in our mock draft, I know he fell very far down just because my trade, but I gotta go Keontae George. I think that he has the better upside to him, and he's kind of shown that he's more proven scorer
Hmm.
than, Smith Jr., and he's a little bit of a better passer, and he can rebound better, so I think his overall game will kinda translate better to the NBA, and I think shooting obviously will come to the NBA once you get kinda more comfortable, to the league, but I gotta go George on this one.
Yeah, the thing about Keontae George is when he gets hot, it's like he gets hot and he goes crazy. It's like
Mhm,
you don't run into him when he's hot, and Nick Smith Jr. may end up being better, but it's also like I think you've got more risk with Nick Smith Jr. because he didn't get as much run in college. I
mhm.
had an injury, so it's like he I think he got a lot more risk with Nick Smith Jr. So all right, I got two groups left. The next one, another head to head here. This one is pure shooters. I'll call them Grady Dick and Jordan Hawkins, both lottery right now. Which one of the lottery talent shooters do you like more?
This is tough. This is Trey's guys, so he might give me a little shit on this. Oh my gosh, like, I love Grady Dick, pause, um, but, I mean, I like both these guys. These are, like, some of my favorite guys in the class, and, I mean, Dick's game at Kansas was, just he was so good. He was lights out. Trey says, obviously, this isn't even close, it's Dick. Solely based on the name, he should get drafted to the Magic with Jalen Suggs, but this is so tough. You could flip a coin on this, James. I really
Yeah,
can't make a decision.
yeah.
I think it's very tough. So,
It it is tough, and I love the way that Jordan Hawkins can shoot off movement. It's like,
mhm,
it's nice, but I think the interesting thing here is that like looking at mock drafts and looking at projections, it's like Grady Dick is projected to go much higher, and it's probably because of his size. It's because you can play him at the wing. That's probably why he's projected to go much higher.
yeah.
Um, but I think there's a chance that I've seen Jordan Hawkins at 11. I've seen Jordan Hawkins at 20 to the Rockets. I've seen him, I think 21 or 22 to the Nets. It's like teams there hasn't really been a consensus as to where he's going. So I think I'm with you. I think Grady Dick is well, I guess you didn't pick, but I'm with Trey. I think Grady Dick probably ends up being a little bit better just because you can play him at the wing. But man, I think a team that gets Jordan Hawkins, if he falls out of the lottery, I think they're probably getting a steal. So I think it's kind of positives with either guy. It's the way.
Yeah.
Um, Last group that I have here is kind of the high side wing. Um, Chet Howard, Bryce Sensabaugh, and Dariq Whitehead. I guess Bryce Sensabaugh can play a little bit as a guard. Um, kind of in the same group as late lottery prospect. We're getting a little classes as any of the, but just out of the last three there.
Can you repeat? I heard Sensabog and I heard Jet Howard. Who was the last guy?
Dariq Whitehead. My bad.
Dariq Whitehead. Okay. Hmm. I mean, I know Sensabog literally cannot play defense to save his life. Like he is
Neither can
awful on
Jet.
defense. And that was like kind of the one thing that
Neither
kind of
can Jet.
deterred me. I'm not a fan of Jet Howard. I it's not because I hate Michigan, James. I'm just not a fan of it. I'm not a fan of any of the Michigan guys. They don't scream like I'm that guy to me. I think Howard's better than this might be a hot take. Howard might be better than Kobe Buffkin, but mm, I want to say I want to go with Sensabog just because he's such a good scorer. But it's so
One's
tough.
probably the toughest one because those guys are all so close.
Yeah.
All so close.
But I think the
Um,
sole fact that he's terrible at defense makes him just like the 1A, 1B with kinda Dariq Whitehead. Howard's last, though. Gotta pick Howard last.
Howard's probably worse on defense than is crazy to even think about saying because he has absolutely no. I don't think Jet Howard has any defensive capabilities, but he can shoot the rock, so that's always a
Yeah,
positive. But
he can shoot it.
ask a- ask him to defend someone one on one, and you're probably screwed. like, um, so those are all the names I had left in terms of prospects I wanted to get your opinion on. So unless you have any NBA draft stuff that you want to touch on, whether it's prospects or whether it's trades, um, I'll leave the floor to you. Otherwise, we plan on keeping it short. We got through all the breaking news. We got through some NBA draft stuff. So I'll leave the floor to you on any NBA draft stuff that you want to touch on before we get out of here.
I've 2 things. One's a question for you, James, and then it's a
Hmm.
hot take, or
Okay.
it could be. Um, I wanna, like I know I've talked about this a lot in the Slack chat and, like, even on the Daily Show a lot, is the debate between Brandon Miller and Scoot Henderson.
Hmm.
Who do you think is better?
I think it's Scoot. Um, I the okay. I like Brandon Miller's game. I think that he is a great wing to have. I think that if you put him on a roster with a good playmaking point guard, I think you're getting a lot of good results. Whether that be in Charlotte with LaMelo, whether that be in Portland, and you sticking with Dame, whether it's in Detroit, would be positive with Brandon Miller. But I think that Scoot Henderson has higher potential to be a number one on a very good team. So I do think he's better. I think he has higher upside. His shooting I don't think is as bad as many people make it out to be. Um, I think he can get the shot down. He shoots very good in the mid range. And that 3 point I shot is not terrible. It's not as bad as many people make it out to seem. People make it out to seem like he has absolutely no three. I think it's better than people give him credit for. So I lean Brandon Miller or excuse me, I lean Scoot Henderson. But if I were Charlotte at 2, I'd take Scoot. And I read Carl's post on the site about adding Brandon Miller and how he can fit. Or Jesus Christ, I can barely talk. All right, I read Carl's post about Scoot and how he can fit next to LaMelo. So I suggest people go read that. But I agree with a lot of what he said. I think that that's a better fit than and said the wrong name about 4 times. In short, I'm taking Scoot over Brandon Miller. What about you?
I mean, I think I've said it all year. I don't think Brandon Miller like, he's a good player, don't get me wrong, but Scoot is so close to Wembanyama that people are kinda washed over the media and the hype about him. So I think Scoot is definitely the 1B in this class over Miller.
Mm-hmm. And you traded out of the Charlotte pick at number 2 and didn't
I
take
did. I
Scoot.
did. I did trade out of that pick. But
Um,
like to my defense, I know I got a lot of hate for it. I was gonna take Brandon Miller at that number 2 pick because I feel like if Jordan, like I was anticipating Jordan to sell the Hornets, and I was like, I think that without him, there'd be a better team. And I think that LaMelo, if he gets this deal and kind of shines in this next year, Hornets will pay him. And I think if you fit Brandon Miller with him too, it's going to take a lot of ease off him too. He's going to become an even better passer than he already is. And I think that even drafting Sude's gonna almost be like a kind of a pushing him out of Charlotte almost. And I think that's kind of like a, oh, you're taking my job, and I feel like LaMelo just wants to be built around him. He's the sole piece of the Hornets. So that's why I kind of I passed up on Scoot. I tried to get 3. I tried to trade down from 3, but I couldn't find a trade. So for the Hornets, I liked my guys who I picked in the draft. So I'm happy with it. But moving on from that, I'm fine if I get more hate. My hot take, I've been kind of high on this guy. He's close to me. He's a Canadian. I'm gonna go Leonard Miller from the G League will be one of the best players in this class. I know
ooh.
he's still hot. He's still like a very good player. Like he's projected high, but I think he could be up there with Wembanyama, with Henderson, with the Thompson twins. I think he's gonna be right there with them. I think he might be like around the 2nd to 5th best player in this class behind Wembanyama.
That's interesting to me because I like Leonard Miller as well, and someone he's we could have done a in the little section we did about comparing prospects. We could have done a Bilal Kubali versus Leonard Miller as kind of like your high upside wing that's going to get taken in the lottery. But
Mhm.
the similar to my logic on Kobe Buffkin earlier, last year Leonard Miller, went to he did some pre-draft stuff, ended up going back to the G League, and the team said, "Hey, you're not ready yet." And he said, "All right," and he went back and he worked on his game. He got miles better,
Mhm.
and now he's coming back and he's borderline lottery. I don't know where he goes. I think he can get taken in the lottery, but I really value the type of guy that goes and takes a year in the G League and gets miles better. I think that is
Mhm.
always a very, very massive positive. If you can take that time, you take the criticism on the chin and you use it to get better. And that's exactly what he did. And that's something that, I'm not sure that every single prospect has. So I credit Leonard Miller a lot in that regard. And, he has an interesting skill set where he's a big body, can go get rebounds. He'll play the floor. He's got some playmaking chops. So I think your projection there of him being one of the best players in the class is aggressive, but I'm with you. He's a prospect that I really like. So aggressive hot take, but I don't absolutely hate it. Aggressive, yes, but I see the thought process, so I like it.
Yeah. The one thing that I just love about his game is he's efficient. Like he is probably one of the most, if not the most efficient player in this class. And he's 6'10", 213 pounds. He's 19, and he can play either the 3 or the 4. The shooting will come. He wasn't awful from 3, but he wasn't great in the G League. And obviously, I think getting that experience in the G League and playing from the deeper range obviously will help from him getting used to it more. But his wingspan is also he's 7'2" on his wingspan. So he's going to be a defensive force in the NBA. And I think I could see him being kind of a Jason Tatum like guy. And if he gets his passing up, then somewhere around that area.
Yeah, and like you said, like his 3-point wasn't the best, but it's also like you're playing at the NBA 3-point line already. So
Mhm.
it's like some guys come to the league and struggle to extend the distance. That isn't even something you have to consider. Yes, he has to get better from that distance, but there isn't the adjustment to the deeper 3-point line, which kind of already helps him, which other prospects, obviously there's more guys in the G League than ever, but that extended 3-point line is not going to hurt him at all. He can kind of pick up where he left off rather than, a struggling guy in college have to extend his range a little bit.
Yeah.
All right. We're sitting at 45 minutes. Like I said earlier, we got through the top news, Jordan snuck in some NFL with DeAndre Hopkins, and we ended up getting a decent amount of draft talk in. We got a patented Griffin hot take at the end, which is always nice. I love those. So I think we had a good show here. It is Friday, so Daily Show will be back on Monday. Nothing for this weekend for the Daily Show. But with that being said, there are a ton of YouTube videos on the Vendetta Sports or the Vendetta Media YouTube, excuse me. Jackson Law has been pumping out NBA content. So if you need a taste of Vendetta Sports Media over the weekend, that is your place to go. So also read the website, vendettasportsmedia.com. But to everybody who tuned in, thank you for watching, and we will catch you next week.